So let's see here. Let's see here where we're going to go. I'm going to step over, and now I'm going to go into generate timer. Generate timer has nothing in it, so it can't possibly fail. Now I'm going to generate the bingo card. So I'm going to step into that one, and it starts going through here, and it stops and dies right there. Now, it dropped into jQuery for some reason. I don't care. That's not something I wrote. What I see here is an error. And how I read this error, it starts at main.js on line 111, column 5. And if I click on it, it'll take me right there. And that's not where it really died. That was the thing that called the method that died. So we can go up. Main.js, line 23, column 14, generate bingo card. Well, it didn't really die there, it died inside there. So I go up again. Now it takes me to exactly where it died. I can see with the little red underline. And it tells me, uncaught reference error, generate row markup is not defined. Now, even if I don't know what that is, the way I debug this is I put a breakpoint on that line and I run it again. Okay? Only this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload the page and I'm just going to run to this point. So I'm going to reload the page. I'm going to take this breakpoint out because that's not where it breaks. I'm just going to push run. Now it's stopped here before this line executes. I know when I execute this line, it's going to break. Right? So if I step over this line, it's going to break. Well, what if I step into this? Oh, it breaks already. It gives me some weird gobbledygook crap here. Why did it break already there? Okay. And here's the thing. Generate row markup is a method on the actual application object. If I look at the scope side over here, I can see the application object right here. This is the class or the definition. Here's the object. And it says prototype object, so that's what kind of thing it is. And if I look at the application here, I can see the data. And what I see here is I don't have a generate row markup. I don't have one that I can access. I can see generate row markup right here. So how come I'm not accessing the right one inside this application? Well, let me look at the editor. In the initialization method here, I put this in front of every time I called one of my local methods. Inside generate bingo card, there's no this here. So why doesn't someone go add that? Put this dot in front of that generate row markup so that we use our current generate row markup. Let me So this dot, right? This object. And the dot is a dereference. It says use my version. You know where to put it? Here's the line it breaks on. It's because it can't find generate row markup. Because generate row markup is a global function, and we don't have a global function. We have this method, which is part of our application. See, it says app.generate row markup, and we refer to the app generate row markup inside the application with the this keyword, right? So this dot. So go ahead, type it in. Right, so You see the error message says when I hover over it, generate row markup, when I hover over it, is part of the application. It's a method that's part of the application class. When we called it here, we weren't calling it with the right thing. I'm going to take it out, you're going to write it again. So when I hover over it here, it doesn't know where the definition for it is, can't find it. It's not global, there's no global function with this name. It's only got a definition inside the application object. But we're inside the application object, so we don't know what the name of the object is yet. So we just use the this placeholder.
So it's just like you declare the
It's like mine. It's like mine.
Yeah, well, you tell the program that, like, this is everything I want to do.
Yeah.
And you put the, like, what used to be the function dot generate sliders.
Yeah.
And here what you're doing is depending on what function,
Yeah.
like what thing you're trying to do, you have to call them.
Functions and methods are the same thing. Okay? The difference is that a method is inside an object class definition. So when you use a method that's inside your own class definition, you need to prefix it with which version of this am I using? I'm using my version of it. And the keyword that JavaScript uses for my version of it is this. So let's go run it again. And we're going to stop at the same place. And now I'm going to step in, and now it finds the right one. So I'm just going to let it run, take out the breakpoint, and let it run. Take out the breakpoint, let it run. And we get our free cell. So that's cool. The only thing we don't have is we don't have images in the slider, right? Did you do your homework? Did everyone find some images and create some CSS?
I did. I have tried it.
Perfect. That's all we need.
Yes.
That's all we need to try.
Okay.
So, in VS Code, over here, take your memes.css and add it to the CSS folder. You should be able to just copy and paste the file in. And if you can't do that, you can go here and create a new file.
Can we have like 5 minutes, because I have all the code, but like, it's all like.
It's messy.
Yes, really.
It's okay. No. Put the messy stuff up. I want to see the messy stuff. Yeah, we'll help you clean it up. It's all good.
I have everything. It's just this. Really
It's all in one file.
Okay, so I just want to make sure.
You could create a new file in the share, and then cut and paste. If you're unsure, you know, I do this all the time, but you can go File, New Window, and you'll get another VS Code window, and you can point them at 2 different folders. You know, so if you got 2 screens, you can have VS Code on the left, what I'm copying from, and VS Code on the right, what I'm copying to.
Yeah, that is what I want to do. There it is.
Right?
And JavaScript.
So that's the data we're going to need. We're going to need memes.css with a bunch of our memes in it. We're going to need the actual assets somewhere, someplace. We can create any folder, any name we want, just as long as the CSS file refers to the right folder. Right. And then we're going to build a slider. We already have a placeholder for where it goes. We just need to actually put it in place. So we got 20, cool. We need the data. We need the data. I want the memes.css file,
Okay.
and I want the actual memes.
Yeah, how do I do that?
Well, let's see if you can copy a file from your machine in here. I don't know if this will work. I'm just, right? So if you right click on the file and paste it into that CSS folder, see if it'll let you do that. If it won't let you do that, then we'll do it the cheap way, which is I'll create a file and you can paste the contents in. Will it let you paste a file in?
No.
No? Okay. Open up your memes.css in a separate editor. Well, it'll let you create the file.
Yeah, there is my JavaScript. Like that is the thing that is messy, and the means I have it.
Okay, so here's what we'll do then. New file, memes.css, right? And paste your CSS in there.
But you want to have the files.
I don't care, I just made the file. Making files is cheap. There you go. Okay. Now, getting the files, a little bit challenging. The file folder names here, we're gonna have to deal with, okay? So the easiest way to get me the files is zip up just the files, put it in Discord, and I'll grab it from there. All right. While you're doing that, we gotta fix a little bit of this. The first thing is you're using an assets folder, which is great. So let's create that assets folder. Right? I'm going to add a new folder, assets. Cool. It's under CSS. I don't want it there. Under CSS. There we go. There's our assets folder. The second thing is you're using relative paths, which is perfect. Okay? Except, first of all, the file names have spaces in the names.
Yeah.
So all of those got to go away.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And the slashes go the wrong way because of the spaces. So what effectively was happening here was that this space is an illegal character. So when you pasted it in, it put this backslash in front of it to say, hey, this is an illegal character, but just treat it like a normal character. Right? So,
Scott, do I download the file too?
yeah.
This file?
Yeah. So what we need to do here is we're going to need to rename all the files with no spaces. Okay? I'm going to put an underscore in here. You're going to change all the file names before you zip them up and put them on.
I already did.
You already changed all the file names?
No, I already sent it.
Already zipped it? Okay.
But I can change them and send it again.
Yeah, now if I wanted to cheat and I had 100 of them to do, I would write a little program to do it because I'm lazy. Changing 100 file names is not fun.
Should I just like erase this all
Yeah.
the special characters?
Yeah. So what we want to do is turn them into this. Okay?
Okay.
Why'd you name them all the same name?
It's just I used this page and it just did it automatically, and I was like, okay, cool, it just uses the same name and has a different number at the end, so
Yeah.
it works for me, but it doesn't. Apparently, so yeah, I didn't.
So one of the ideas here that I'm showing you is by building them as classes, like this, we can change the file name to anything we want, and our program will still run. Because our program is only going to care about adding class names to elements. It isn't going to care about the image itself. That particular kind of technique is called decoupling. Right? It's like, now, as a designer, I can go change all of the images without having to change any of the programming. Does someone want to go through this file and go fix it up so that, you know, they're all _1, _2, _3? Or do you want me to do it in the typical lazy way that a programmer would do this?
The typical lazy way.
You want me to do the lazy way, don't you? I knew you would say that.
Please do it.
If I hold down the Alt key, I can have multiple cursors at the same time.
Scott, the assets, should I put them in the CSS folder then?
No, I put an assets folder
Outside?
at the same level as the CSS folder.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got multiple cursors there, and now whatever I do happens to all those locations at the same time. So I'll put an underscore, get rid of those, go 2 characters over. Actually, that's going to be a problem with some of them, so let's just do the double-digit ones first. And do the single-digit ones second. And don't feel bad if you don't know that programming editors do weird and crazy things like that, because those are the kind of things you learn just by using it all day, every day.
I'm almost done. Wait.
Yeah, other than that, this is laid out perfectly. Okay.
I watched your video again.
You paused it in the middle?
Yes, to see like.
Anna, what are you changing the names to on? You're changing like on the.
No spaces, no funny characters.
No, just
Yep. So you want me to grab that out of Discord?
No, wait. I'm going.
Oh, you haven't done it again?
No, I.
The one that's there is junk?
Yes. Word junk.
You can delete it.
Oh.
There we go. So I'm going to go grab your assets, continue to download, and I'm going to put it in the right place. Which one am I working on? There we go. Open. There's your assets folder. I can take all of this. Go extract. Okay. Ta-da! Close that. Take the zip file, delete it because we don't need it. And now we got a whole bunch of images.
It's literally memes with no text.
How stereotypical. Okay, cool, good enough. So, what do we got to do next?
Fix my JavaScript.
That's your job. All right. Oh, someone's pasted all of this in. No, that's Anna.
Yeah, no, that's mine.
That's yours.
But I didn't
Okay.
paste it. I wrote it with you.
Okay. So this is the one I turned into this.
Yes, and I've been trying, but I
You want the magic, right?
can't. I need
The magic is you take everything here, down, okay, and Control X, cut, go inside the object, and Control V to paste it. Okay, so now it's all inside the object. I'm going to change the indentation so I don't get confused. Okay, all those functions. I'm going to hit the tab key once to indent them. Then I'm going to get rid of the function keywords. And if I hit Control F, I can search and replace with nothing, all of them all at once. You don't want me to type, do you? Well, that's just painful. Okay, and then the last thing is, anytime you use these things, you have to, any of these methods that use them, you have to put the this keyword in. So in your init here, handle pop-up, that's okay. So handle pop-up doesn't do anything.
And I also had some trouble with the markup row.
That'll work for now. Now, let's see if you can spot the problem. When I look at the outline here, everything that's in red, it's got a little bit of a, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay? But when I collapse this, I start to see even more. Why does the app in red says it has 3 errors? Well, if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see these little red boxes. That's where the errors are, and you just move the cursor to them, and you'll see right here, this little red squiggle underneath that curly bracket. So why generate row? Okay, so that's right. You had the closing one there, so hit save. Okay. What else? You see where this indentation is not, like, what's going on here? What's going on here?
That is the function I had trouble with. Oh, it's missing an indentation
So,
here, right?
yeah, so take a look at it. Well, forget about the indentation. Put it back. And if you highlight this one, where's the opening bracket or the only opening brace for this one? It highlights with a little white box around it. So look up to find out where the, no, that's not where it is.
No.
Look. Look at the end of line 67.
Oh, I see.
Okay? So that's great. The indentation is correct there, but generate row still has an error here, and that's because it's this. Every time you have a curly bracket, you come out. Right? Let's get rid of the comments. So now we've got all this stuff. Out here that should be indented, but it's not indented because it's not inside some function or method.
That's correct.
Right? And in fact, this curly bracket goes to the for loop. This curly bracket goes to this guy. So let's line them up right. Which means all of this stuff is not part of any method. It's just loose inside the class, which is not going to work.
I know.
Okay.
I got lost.
So we're already generating a row, and that's exactly what this is doing. So how about you just delete it?
Okay.
Don't be afraid to delete stuff. It's just typing.
So from
The
now-
number one thing that throws people when they first learn to program is they get so afraid to delete something for fear it will stop working. Right? Not working is the normal state. Working is the abnormal state. Right? I did that class thing. What's the first thing it did? It crashed. It didn't work. How long have I been doing this? And the first time out, it doesn't work? Because I missed something. Because there's lots of details. So don't be afraid of making stuff that breaks, doesn't work. It's much better to learn the techniques to find and fix your own errors one at a time. So just blow that away, delete it. Now, this one, Why does a nit? Like, why we got an error there? Right?
Because it's missing the at the beginning, right?
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, we can always look up to find out, but really the problem is there is no init function that you're calling. The init function that you're calling is part of the application.
Scott, I don't know why I literally copy pasted everything from your code, but I don't even have the bingo thing show up.
Because it's got an error in it. This is the problem when you just blindly copy paste to try and figure out how something works. Figure out how it works. Let's solve this part first. Okay, so what do you need to do, Anna, to make that?
Add the thing at the beginning, right?
Right.
Or go before.
Okay. Save it. Now, we've also got, if you notice in the outline, it's still got 2 errors in it. And one of the errors here is this generate bingo card. And what's the problem with generate bingo card?
There is missing one bracket.
Yeah. And where is it missing the bracket?
Like the first one doesn't have.
Well, it's because it matches them up, it pairs them up. So you see the for loop over here has one,
Yes.
and you see it highlights where its matching brace is. So as soon as we indent that the right way, where does this one go to? There's no matching brace for ending the generate bingo card, is there? So we need to add the matching brace in there. And now if you look on the left, you'll find there's no errors in that outline anymore. Okay. Now that doesn't mean it's going to work correctly, it just means it's going to run. And you get a chance to see if it works correctly. Let's go back to our main and see if we can get someone to generate the slider. Right? Now, you already changed total memes. No, someone needs to change total memes. There's 20, right? Okay, I didn't get the slider. What's going on? What's going on? And here's the slider and it says meme 11. That looks like it's doing exactly the right thing. Why are we not seeing any of those pictures? Why are we not seeing any of those pictures?
Oh, you haven't referenced the folder.
So, just because we created a CSS file here, doesn't mean we're actually using it. Right? Now, it says meme 17, and I inspect it. The slider says meme 17. It's still not showing up. Why isn't it showing up? Why isn't it showing up? It's got the div. It has the right classes on it. The classes exist. We've included all the CSS we need, but the picture's not showing up. What could possibly be going wrong here? I've got it highlighted. Why is that not working?
Because you only selected 17?
Nope. It tells you right there why it's not working. How wide is it?
Huge. Oh, 0 by 0.
0 by 0. So it's there. It's just crushed into something that's 0 pixels wide by 0 pixels tall. How do we fix that? CSS, right? So we're going to go to CSS and we're going to make a class that is the size we want our slider to be. So we go back to our editor. We open up our style.css, okay? And we're going to add a class here. Turn the auto thing off. Okay, and in here, what do we want?
How big is the square?
Well, you can decide, right? And I'm going to go background size. Let's make it 100%, 100%. In other words, take the image and make it fit the size I gave it, no matter what. Okay? And then, just because we've added that,
You wouldn't change that class in HTML? The HTML?
I'm going to add it here. And actually, you're right. Let's do it in the HTML. Class item, slider area. Right? Does it make sense why that does work now and didn't work before?
Yeah.
How do we fill the bingo card with randomized images?
You make everything a class.
So let's make it a little easier on ourselves. Let's go 5 by 5. Cool. Let's make the tiles in the bingo card a little bigger. So what I do when I look at that is I inspect it. I say, oh, they're TD elements, and the TDs are in style.css. So let's go to style.css. Let's go find those TDs. Can someone make the width like maybe 7 by 7 instead of 3 by 3?
On the TD?
Yeah. Just make them bigger. Okay.
Well, I think I bigger, no? 10?
But where'd our slider go?
I'm changing it to 10.
Okay, but something else broke our slider, right? Where'd the slider go?
And how would I put that one lower if I don't want to put it in the header?
If you don't want to put...
Look, if you go back,
Yeah.
the header is literally where it starts, and I don't want it to start in the header.
Oh, in the grid? Well, here, let's do this. I'm going to pull the debugger off for a sec so you can see it. There's the grid. If you go to layout, you can turn the grid on. You can see the grid. Okay. So the innermost part here is where we're putting the bingo card, and it's too big for that space, so it overflows, and it's a flex box, so it's centered and overflowing, and it's pushing other things away. So maybe we just go a little smaller to see it for now.
7 then?
Sure. There we go. Now, the other thing is this slider image, you see how it's getting squished out of the way?
Yeah.
Well, maybe what we should do is, put it somewhere else,
On the side.
right? You want to put it on the side? Cool. So let's go look at our grid, and let's go sidebar left. So over here, take this guy, and here's the problem we're going to have. This is column main. Let's make our slider outside of that. And now we're going to need to fix this up a bit. So I'm going to clean it up, okay? So I'm going to make it a div. And I'm going to put it inside a section. So I can style that section with the right grid part. Okay, so you started there, Clover. Why don't you fill in the grid column? Yep. So you're going to wrap it in a div. So grid column sidebar, I think is what it's called. Yeah, let's fix the grid up a little bit too. So grid sidebar left, grid column main. Oh, that was messed up. Let's go back here. So grid sidebar left.
I'm doing something funky because it's not working at my normal.
Grid row. Let's do it row column. Main. And I'm going to put that all inside the main. So I'm going to call this grid column full and grid row full. So let me just shuffle this around a little bit. And here I'm going to do the same thing. Grid row, main. Oh, come on. It's really messy in the middle of redoing it. And then this guy should be a div now. Now we look a little bit better. Okay. Now we can go take a look at the grid and see where we got things. Grid row main, grid sidebar left. Okay, so far we're okay, except this thing is a container, which is a flex box, and the flex box by default I have set up to order things by rows. Here, container does everything by columns. So let's just add this. And then we can add it here. Is that what you had in mind?
A little bit.
Right.
A little bit more centered, like to this one.
Well, it's centered. You want some space between them?
Yeah.
So how do we
Gutter,
add
gutter.
how do we add space between them?
You add a gutter.
You can
make it
either add a
bigger.
gutter or in the slider area.
Mhm.
Why doesn't someone go into that slider area and add maybe a margin around the outside?
Slider.
So someone can go into that slider area and add a margin of what, a couple EMs?
10? No,
No.
2.
What's the font size here?
I don't know.
Because one EM is the size of the height of one font.
Let's see.
The default's 14 pixels.
Let's see
So,
how it looks.
that better?
No.
You get rid of it. There you go.
No.
We could also make the slider bigger.
No.
Why don't you make the slider bigger?
Let's see. There you go.
Well, let's make the slider bigger too.
Okay.
Here's what I found.
Siri. Open me out.
Turn Siri and Cortana off.
Should I make then what?
Make it bigger.
Bigger?
Yeah.
The margin?
No, the image itself.
Oh.
Right?
Where's
It's in the same class.
in the slider area?
Yeah. See the size?
Let me
The
see.
width and the height?
Oh yeah.
Just make it bigger.
What should I make it? Maybe. I did something wrong.
Make it bigger. There you go. Make the width a little wider.
Okay, I'm going big. Oh. Still. No.
Think 16:9.
60?
16:9 ratio. 16 wide by 9 tall.
16. No, but that one's, it's in pixels.
Not specifically 16 pixels by 9. Think the ratio. What screen resolution do we normally?
Scott.
16/9 is a fraction. So if you want it 400 pixels wide, that's the 16 part.
Wait, 1 second. Let me.
So multiply by 16 and divide by 9, and you'll get the height.
It's 144. Wait.
Tabs on it.
Why don't you just edit it? Just go edit it.
1920? No, but this one's way too big.
Oh, now you're getting fancy. You want to do a fancy CSS thing.
Clover, I like it.
Can we do that?
Yes, sort of. You do what you think it should be, and I'll show you how it's done.
Clover, are you editing it?
Yeah, she did.
Well, I can. It's just that my thing. It's not like highlighting where anyone is.
Yeah. There. Okay. So the trick, Clover, keyword calc is a function, and you just need to put the pixels in there.
Nice. Way to go, Clover.
Okay? So that gets you the ratio, but let's do,
But it's twisted, right? Like 9 should go first or something?
it doesn't matter, multiplication is commutative, it doesn't matter which direction you go.
No, but
Right?
it's,
I think she's talking about the height and
yeah.
the width.
Yes, you're right.
Bingo!
Brilliant. Ha, bingo. That's a good pun. Okay. So the next step is putting random memes in each of these, right? Okay. How did we do this one? We have one class for its size and a different class for the meme. Let's reuse the meme class and use a class for the size of those things. So we already have the TDs with the right size, right? So here's what we're going to do. When we generate our bingo card, we generate rows. And for each row, we generate that empty TD. Well, in order to get an image there, wouldn't we just have to like create a
TD?
random number, use that to generate the meme name as a class, and insert it in that TD?
Weird.
So if I put here, because I'm generating this anyways, I might as well. And I'll just throw that in some backticks. And all of a sudden it's just kind of right. Okay, now the scale isn't right, so we can take care of that in our CSS. In our TD, we just set the background size to 100%. 100%. And voila, we have them all. Except it's not random, right? We're just adding this here. I mean, I'm generating the table anyway, so I might as well generate it the way I like it. So if I give you another hint and we go, and then use that as a parameter here. I get the same thing, right? We already see above, when we initialize things, how we generate a random number and use that to generate a meme name. Okay. So do I just copy paste this into the table? I mean, this generates a random number and then a meme name.
But
Down here, I just generate a meme name and stuff it in there.
you need to add that it has to choose a different one,
Every time,
right? Every time.
right? So again, do I just copy paste this? Because that generates a random one. Right? And so what do we do when we copy paste? If that's got an error in it and I copy paste it, I just pasted the error in 2 different places. So this is one of those key places that you take a half step back and go, oh, I would just copy paste these in there. But as soon as I copy paste them, I'm going to have 2 copies of it. That makes my code wet, right? Write everything twice. So to make it dry, I'm going to carve this into a function. And what's a function called when it's inside a class?
This.
A method.
A method.
So the way we're going to do this is we're going to describe what we do. Let class name we'll just make that up, create it, right? And then we'll copy this once out and paste it here where we can. Return that class name. Now, anytime I want to generate a new random meme, I just call this .generate meme class, and it generates a random number and gives me the class name in return. So I'll get rid of the dead space here. The whole idea I'm getting to is each of these methods is very short, right? So it's really hard to mess up the methods. Also, I've just made an edit and then made sure it still works. Okay, I haven't edited too much before I test it again. So it's still working. Now I know that my generate meme class method works. Let's reuse it somewhere else. What did that cost us? 4 lines of code we added to make that work? Well, this is common when you're putting simple little apps together and you're defining these things, is the farther you go into it, the more of these little functions you create or these little methods you create. And so the next one becomes easier because you've already got pieces that kind of do parts of it. Does it make sense to you what this does and how it works? Okay.
But then it has 3. It has 4 that are the same.
That's okay. Isn't that okay?
No,
Why?
because then it's going to confuse the machine.
You want them all unique?
Well, then it's going to confuse the machine.
Why?
Because it's going to put 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And then if you get like, if you hit bingo, it's going to act all weird, no?
Why?
Because you're going to have so many.
We're going to have to do that anyways. Are you ready to do the next part? Make it interactive?
No, wait. Please. Give us another 5 minutes so that we can catch up.
Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the fact that I'm generating the bingo card. And I'm generating that HTML, I might as well generate it any old way I like.
I know why I did it.
As you go through and start looking at it, okay? Be wary that, you know, at some point where you're just cloning what you see, you know, people aren't going to ask you to do things that you've seen before. So you got to figure out how it works so that you can invent things yourself.
Yes.
Now, how do we make sure this whole application works? Well, I can tell you the thing we have to do is go through this whole application object, and everywhere we've written a comment, replace it with the code that does what the comment says. So I stopped it here so that this to me is the next place to go to start making things interactive. This is where I'm going to put in all of the parts that listen for specific button clicks and do something.
Ah.
Either that or you got to make a timer work to make the sliders move. But those are two separate problems, and I don't want to deal with both of them at the same time. Okay, so we've taken a look here. So let's do the most important thing on our bingo card right away, which is how do I mark something as selected? Okay.
Oh, like,
So like when I click on one of these, how do I mark it selected? Now,
That way you said you did it with CSS.
I did it with CSS because, you know,
program.
yeah. So when I think about playing bingo, I think about all those grannies sitting there with those little ink bottles. Little, and they put big dots. So first thing I'm going to do is come up with something, and in this case I'm just going to use a box shadow, and I'm going to shift it or offset it. X, Y, and give it a color. Green.
You love green.
It makes people replace things.
Green is one of my favorite colors.
And I'm going to make it a circle. Now, it won't show up until we actually use this class. So, what are we going to use? Let's put it on the free space. And the class was called .it. So where we generate our bingo card, just for testing purposes, let's see what that looks like. And of course, use my little back tick so I can use quotes in there. There it is. Pretty exciting, right? It's cheesy, I know. It's got black around the edges, I know. I wonder if I can make it does that make any difference? Not really. That was a guess. I'd have to look it up. How to make the black corners not black. No? None of that's working. Come back to that. So what I really want to do then is when I click on a square, what do I want to do? I just want to mark it, right?
Maybe you can do that
So-
with another color.
Well, we can use that class. We just need to add that class to the square that got clicked. So we have pieces of similar code already. If we look in our handlers, we've got this, how do I respond to clicking on something? So we're going to use something similar to that. I'm going to hook up something that whenever I click on one of those TDs, I want to add a class to it. This guy is the element that was actually clicked. That gets given to me in that event object when I click on something. Okay? So if I know what element it is, and here I've got this class list that I'm adding a class to. So we should be able to put those pieces together. User presses on a TD. Add event listener, right? But I don't want to add it to the whole document. I instead want to go get a specific element. Query selector. The problem is query selector grabs one element. And I want to grab all the TDs. I won't let you click on any of the TDs. So I'm going to have to use this query selector all. Now that gives me, if I look in the documentation, right? Node list of HTML table cell elements. So it gives me a list. So I need to go through everything in the list. So for each element in the list, I want to do something. Okay? And for each element, I want to add the event listener. I'm going to split this apart a little bit. That listens for a click event. Now, little squiggly line there. There we go. So does it make sense to you what that's doing? So when I select all of the TD elements, it gives me a list of every table data element. And for each element in the list, one at a time, I'm going to go through them and add an event listener. And all that event listener is going to do is take the thing that got clicked and it's going to go look at its class list. It's going to go add, what do we call it? The dot in. Let's give it a try. Okay, now, can anyone see the problem? Does not pay attention to what the slider is. I should only be able to click on things that are the same as the slider, right?
You can put if.
You do it. I'll help you with where to save the slider, but okay. So if, just write it in a comment to start with.
No. Here. If.
Just think of it in English. Spanish.
Picture.
You want to see?
If.
I can read the Spanish.
You can?
Can't speak it, not like beyond a tourist, but you know.
You can read it.
I've had enough Spanish-speaking students that unfortunately I see lots of code comments in Spanish.
If slider.
Yeah. Just write it in English. Put it in a comment to start with.
If slider.
Just put the double slashes and write exactly
That's
what
what
you
I'm
think.
doing. Ah, but I'm not putting it there. I'm putting it.
You're doing it in yours.
Yeah. Sorry.
There we go. Put it inside. Put it inside. Right where my cursor is. Write it where it is.
Here?
No. Go back.
Inside where?
Undo the tabs a couple times. Right. That. There. See where my cursor is? Yeah. Right
So
there.
It doesn't highlight anything on that. There?
Yeah. So if
Slider.
slider image is the same as this event target image
Is the same as.
as target, then we add the dot in. Right?
Dot it.
Well, I called it dot in, just because it's short.
Sounds cool.
Okay. So where do we find out what the slider image is?
In the.
Well, what's the easy way? We generate it, don't we?
Yeah.
So what if we just saved it in memory? This is the meme class, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we generate the slider. So what if I now go use something? What if I create a space to store the current slider image?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna exit.
What if I just create that? And then I use it here. Does it still run? It still works.
And if you quit, it doesn't work.
So, if you run it in the debugger, we built that generate meme class, right? And it returns a string, which is the right meme class, and we know it works. But if we look at our debugger right now, what you see under locals, local variables, you see this. This is the current object. And if you open that up, I've got a property called current meme. And that property is available everywhere inside this object. So when I generate meme class and I stuff it in there, this current name is now set to what the current slider is. And I can reuse it here. But when I go and test things, let's put a breakpoint there for the dotting in. Okay, and I just let it run. Nothing happens because I haven't triggered an event. When I go click on this, right, step over it. I'm going to put something in so you see it. Let me just put a dummy thing in there so you can see it. There we go. Let's just rerun that. Now when I click on it, it's going to stop here. Why is this undefined? Why is this undefined? Yeah, we're going to try it anyways. See if it runs okay. There we go. So we're saving the current meme into a property of our application. And it's become part of this current object that we're inside. So now if I follow your comment, and we turn this if into if, and how do I get the event target classes? So there's a function for that. And if we just use the IntelliSense, let's see, doesn't do it. That's too bad. Class list dot contains. Is there a contains? Well, let's look it up. Let's go to our browser and let's go see about class list contains. So here's that class list. Let's see, what can we ask of it? Here's all the different methods. There's obviously an add and remove I've used with you before. But let's see if there's some way to find out if it has a specific class. Remove, replace. Well, that's not easy to find. There we go. Someone's done it. It is contains. There we go. So we only want to apply that. That's for debugging purposes. We don't need that anymore. So the trick is looking up these methods on that class list. There we go. Let's see if that works. So here, we clicked on a cell. The current meme is meme 3. Does this guy have meme 3? Well, no, it's meme 2. So it should skip over. Okay. Let's put the breakpoint right in the middle and see if we can get it to do the right thing. So now we've got this guy. And now it's stopped in the middle because the class list meme 3, the target contains meme 3 as a class. So that means we can only select the things that have matching memes. Have a look at that. Okay. So now I'm just testing for which classes they have. And if they have a class that matches, I'll go ahead and apply a new class to show that I've clicked on it and it's the right one. The only thing we have to do after this is two things. One, we have to switch the memes with a timer.
What timer?
And two, when you push the I have a bingo button, we have to go validate that you actually have a bingo. All right? So let's put the timer thing off till next time. The how do I test if I have a bingo? That's something that's going to take a little bit of work to figure out. Because that's something we're going to have to go through every TD in a specific column or a specific row and see if all of them have the dotted class. If all of them have the .it class, then you have a bingo. And if they don't, you don't have a bingo. Okay. When you pull up the outline, you can still see that we have a relatively simple, straightforward, nicely constructed object. And even though the object itself is starting to get long, each of these functions or methods is relatively short. In fact, if we want to make these shorter, we can carve these into their own separate methods, so that checking each of these things is its own special thing. So for instance, for this guy, I'm going to add an event listener for the help system. Okay? Yeah. Sure, why not? Init help listener. So I just moved that code into a separate method and called it. So we kind of follow this methodology over and over again. And we put in these empty messages to ourselves. And each time we're trying to make the method we're working on small. I'm using really long names here. And for this one, I'm going to take this code that we just did, and I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to paste it into this item select listener. And this is just organizational. It's not changing any of the functionality whatsoever. Remembering that the smaller these things are, the easier they are to maintain. So we're making lots of little small methods. Everywhere we got one of those comments, we've got a function underneath it. Any properties that we need to hang on to, we don't have massive global variables, we just have properties for our object. And I'm going to write to do into everything that I haven't done yet. This last one. fill in some comments. Here's our bingo card. That one's done, and then our main program at the end. And every one of these methods should be less than a page. Every one less than a page, so I don't have to scroll to see them. Everything that's got the to-do on it, I can add a plugin and it shows me all of my to-dos. And I can click on them and it takes me right to them. So if you're working in a big application, you can leave these little to-do comments all over the place, and you know you're done when you've got no to-do comments left. All right, more than enough for today. All right, I'm gonna fade it out. We'll shut off the Discord stream, and when we're done, we're gonna come back next week and look at the timer, and we're gonna look at how do we figure out if we got a bingo or not.